Welcome to Confessions of a Parent Coach. I'm Coach, a mother of four, and potty talker, Ann Kaplan. This is the podcast where I confess something from my own parenting and coaching life, teach a lesson around it, and answer your questions. Even we parenting experts are far from perfect, and the real magic happens when we get down with all that imperfection. We get into the gritty side of parenting here, so earbud up and dive in.
Welcome into another episode of the podcast, everybody. Today is a really special day because I have my 11-year-old Skye here with me. He's going to help me do my confession. So the topic we're talking about today is your growth edge and how do we parent in a way that helps our kids grow and learn and expand without pushing them so far that it's hard and probably maybe traumatic for them even. So I was talking to Skye about this morning, and he had a really good example of a time when I did not do that very well. And I pushed him way too far. Instead of just being in his growth edge, he was out in the deep end of the pool, literally. And it was really scary to him. So Skye, do you want to introduce yourself and tell your story? Feels kind of funny to be on a podcast, eh?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, do you want to tell anybody a little bit about yourself? Anything? How old are you, maybe?
11.
Okay. And the story you were telling me about was a time when we lived in Spain.
Yeah.
How old were you then, do you think?
I think I was 5. Yeah, 5.
Yeah, I think
5 or
that's
6.
about right. Okay. And what happened?
So my parents signed me up unwillingly for swimming lessons.
Yeah.
And every day my dad would take me there on this bike. We had like a seat on it.
Oh, yeah, I remember that bike.
Yeah, he would also take me from school. But he would take me to the swimming lessons. And every day, I was a toddler, and so were all my classmates. And they would
you
give
said you
me,
were 5. Does that feel like a toddler to you?
well, a
Because-
small child.
Yeah, you remember feeling small.
Yes.
And like
And
young.
they would give us a pool noodle to like float on and like practice the strokes
Yeah.
so that it would be easier for us to like once the pool noodle wasn't there, we could actually do it.
Right.
But there was this one trainer that he kind of wasn't very good at seeing that I was uncomfortable.
He wasn't paying attention to how you were
Yeah.
feeling.
And I was swimming like with the pool noodle, and he just takes it. And I literally almost sank to the bottom.
Okay. How did that feel?
Not good, like at all.
What would you say you were feeling at that time?
Panic.
Yeah. How about like when Dad would like take you to swimming lessons? How did you feel like when you were on your way to swim lessons?
My inner rebel exploded forth.
Okay. What does that mean?
I would complain the entire time, and then I would refuse to go inside until he brought me inside.
So he'd pick you up and carry you
Yes.
inside. And how did it feel inside? Like, what were your emotions?
Not good.
Can you expand on that a little bit? Like,
It was like they sent me to swimming lessons just to get away from me and so that I would drown in the water.
So you felt mostly angry
Yes.
and not scared,
Kind of like
more
how Sunday
scared?
school.
Yeah. How about scared or angry, would you say?
Both.
Okay, interesting. And did you learn to swim from those swim lessons?
No.
No, you
They
didn't.
helped me 0.
Yeah.
0% help.
And how long did you go to them? Do you remember? That might be harder for you to remember.
Like a year,
Yeah.
I think.
I think at least a year. Maybe we lived there for 2 years. I think we might have signed you up for I know for sure we signed you up for multiple sessions. And you never liked it.
I never liked it.
You always were scared.
Yes.
And you never learned to swim.
And also their warm up was just like a warm up is to get you in practice and not like tire you out. What they would do is they would make us put our legs in the water and just kick for like 10 minutes. And it sucked because it tired me out, and everybody else, took away from all the swimming.
Right. Why do you think that Dad and I did that?
I don't know.
What do you think we did wrong as parents in that one?
I think when I was like I was fine when we were just trying it out to see if I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came back and I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
And you guys were like, you're gonna do it anyways.
Okay. So what does that mean? You feel like we didn't listen to you?
Yeah.
Okay. And why do you think we decided to do it anyway, even though you were telling us you didn't like it and you were scared?
I don't know.
If you had to guess.
If I had to guess, maybe it's just like we were living in Spain right next to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
I
So
think
like
your kid would want to learn how to swim.
yeah. So you could kind of understand why we did that, but do you think like it's kind of like what you're saying is we weren't thinking about you.
Yeah.
So, but what were we thinking about? More like stuff outside of you or something? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Like what? What stuff outside of you?
Like if we were to go back to Colorado and we went to the pool, I wouldn't be able to go into the pool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, I can tell you what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking about you, Skye, the human. I was thinking about lots of 5-year-olds know how to swim, and lots of Skye's friends can swim. And there's no reason why Skye can't learn how to swim. And, you know, it's time for him to learn how to swim. And so whether he wants to or not, or whether he's scared or not, it's time to go to swim lessons.
I remember every time my dad would like take me there,
Mm-hmm.
I would always get nervous, like every single time.
Oh, that
It didn't
pit in
ma-
your stomach kind of feeling.
Yeah,
Oh,
it didn't
hate
it
that.
didn't matter how many times I went there, it
Mhm.
never went away.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? Also, it didn't matter that you were actually safe there, that there were people going to make sure that you were safe. It didn't feel that way to you.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah. So what do you wish we would have done?
maybe sign me up for more of a little kid swimming lessons because
Not scary.
those were like 13-foot deep pools.
Mhm. You were literally in the deep end of the pool, not just
Uh-huh.
as a metaphor.
And and I remember I am really, really afraid of sharks.
Mhm.
And I would look down and there's these like black tiles on the bottom of the pools. And and since the water like bended the light, it
Mhm.
looked like the shape of a shark. So I would always be like,
Oh, really
no, 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 no,
nervous.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See?
So that didn't help.
So that's a good advice. You're saying basically to not necessarily give up entirely on the
Maybe
thing,
go
but
to
like
like a
do it in a
medium.
way that's more fitting to what you needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you sharing that story, Skye, and I'm also really sorry that I did that to you. That really sucks. Is
Yep.
there anything you need now about it?
Not really.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing really bad has happened since then.
Yeah. How does it feel for me to listen to you tell the story now?
Pretty good.
How so?
Like now that I know that you're like actually like listening,
Mm,
um, it's easier to well, it's just more comforting to know that my mom is listening to me
yeah.
instead of just thinking for herself.
Yeah. So even though that thing happened and it was really crappy, being listened to about it now makes it less crappy, would you
Uh-huh.
say? Okay. Well, I really appreciate you being courageous and coming on the podcast today. That was really cool. That's my confession for today. You helped me do my confession. I'll help you with your microphones. Hold on a minute. Well, that was really cool. Big thanks to Skye for being my little helper with my confession this week. How cute was that? So the topic this week is your growth edge. And I used to think that I'm just so steeped in the coaching world and everything that these sometimes, coaching lingo or jargon is around. And I don't realize that it's not like common language. So I have been using this term growth edge like a ton with my clients. And it was a couple months ago that one of my clients was like, time out. I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. And since then, I've been much more sensitive when I bring up the idea of the growth edge to ask people, like, do you know what I'm talking about when I say growth edge? And I would say 3/4 of the time, people have not heard that expression before. So I'm like, well, this is great for a podcast episode. Let's talk about it. So to back up, and then I'll expand on Skye's story. We all kind of have this idea of our comfort zone, right? Like the area of our lives where we already feel pretty skilled. We're not scared or uncomfortable. That's why it's called our comfort zone. It's where we feel comfortable, right? It's where we feel safe and competent and comfortable and all of those things. And your comfort zone is a really important place to spend time in, I would say every day, especially for children. But you're not really learning or growing when you're in your comfort zone. And then you have like as Skye was saying, literally in his story, the deep end of the pool, like pushing you something or some circumstance that's so far outside of your comfort zone and it's therefore so uncomfortable that you are kind of in a panic about it. You're like in fight or flight mode. It's like pushing all of your buttons. It's absolutely like so far out of your wheelhouse that you're just, flailing and trying to survive. And that's a space where you're also not learning, because when you're in fight or flight mode, like new information and things like that don't penetrate. The only lasting experience you can have from something that's out in the deep end of the pool is trauma. But in terms of like learning really great lessons or expanding your skill set and stuff like that, that's not going to happen out there. You'll probably integrate lots of really unhelpful ideas, like, for example, in Skye's story, he could have integrated the message like, well, there's no point in me talking to my parents because they don't listen to me. These are not the lessons I was trying to teach him when I signed him up for swimming. But in terms of swimming, he did not learn how to swim, right? So we've got your comfort zone and we've got that like deep end of the pool. And then where growth and learning happen is kind of in between those two extremes. So right on the edge of your comfort zone, right where you're uncomfortable, but you're not so uncomfortable that it's like triggering your nervous system into panic mode, and that is what we call the growth edge. It is the edge of your comfort zone, and that is where you grow. And great parenting happens when we create situations and containers and things like that for our kids that keep them in that growth edge, not so far out in the stratosphere that we're traumatizing them at worst, or at least not teaching them anything, and not just keeping them totally in their comfort zone because we can't handle, how uncomfortable we feel when our kids are uncomfortable. And that is a tricky thing. And parents, myself included, as you see, make a misjudgment about where their kids' growth edge is all the time. And so I'm going to talk to you today about how to know when you might be making that misjudgment. And Skye helped illustrate it perfectly in his story, because he said, I wasn't listening to him. I was listening to the voices in my head, the world outside of me. I looked at Skye not as the human individual that he was, who was telling me very clearly, I am terrified of this class. I don't want to do this. I hate this. I was looking at him as a generic 5-year-old. 5-year-olds should know how to swim. Other 5-year-olds know how to swim. Other people are telling me that my kid should know how to swim. Other people are telling me that when their kid was my kid's age, they put them in swim lessons and they learned how to swim right away. Like all of these things that I was listening to, and none of them were my actual human person in front of me. And that's a really great time to key into, am I putting my kid somewhere that's like actually outside their growth edge? Like, am I actually setting this whole situation up for failure? because I am pushing too far, pushing too hard, going too extreme with this situation. The most common words I hear when parents are grappling with this calculation is a lot of shoulds and things like, my kid is old enough to know better. My kid is old enough to learn this stuff. Like, enough is enough. This idea where it's like there's this sort of global outside objective standard that we are applying to a human individual in front of us. And it happens all the time. It happens for me still sometimes, with all of my kids, whether it's my 20-year-old or my 11-year-old, thinking, okay, well, by the time when I was your age, I did blah, 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 which is another great telltale sign that you are not actually looking at your child. You're projecting yourself onto your child. When I was your age, I already knew how to swim. Or when I was your age, I wasn't afraid of the dark. Or when I was your age, I didn't wet the bed, or, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's cool for you. That's not who your kid is. Your kid is them. They're not you, right? And these things seem so blatantly obvious, sitting here in the cheap seats right now when everything is calm. But I bet that you have explored this yourself or made this misjudgment yourself at times in your parenting. And the way to counteract that is to really attune to our children, to really lean into and feel into who your kid is and trusting your gut. Because your child, this is the tricky part about the growth edge. Your kid is never going to say, I want to do this thing that's really scary to me or that makes me uncomfortable. There are some kids who will say that, but it's very rare. And I'll give you an example. Like before we started recording this podcast, Skye and I were brainstorming about like, what are times when I really have like pushed you way too far and it didn't help and you didn't learn anything. And his first example that he came up with was when he moved bedrooms. So he used to sleep in a bedroom that was like right next door to Mike's and mine. It's really a nursery that's attached to our bedroom. And when he was 9, he moved downstairs. So he's in a bedroom that's like right below us now. And he's not on the same floor as we are. And that was the example he came up with. And I said, oh, well, that is a time when I remember that you felt uncomfortable and a little nervous about moving bedrooms, but do you think that it was like something that you really couldn't handle it or whatever? And he thought for a second, then I was like, no, actually it was fine. And within a day or two, I was really excited about having my own room and more space and stuff like that. So that's a really great example of like, if I had asked Skye at the time, like, do you want to move downstairs? Do you want to move farther away from me? He would have said no. In fact, I'm sure he did say no. And when we told him, hey, we're going to be moving bedrooms now because your bedroom is going to become, daddy's office. And so you're going to get this bedroom downstairs. He was like, well, I don't know if I really want to do that. He was nervous about it. Right. So this is the tricky part about the growth edge is we have to attune to our children and use our intuition to really do our best to figure out where that growth edge is for our kids. And my gut told me, I knew not just in general, like 9 years old is old enough. Because I could have said that 4 years old is old enough. His older siblings were sleeping in these exact same bedrooms that we were talking about when they were much, much younger than Skye. But I knew that Skye had a lot of attachment stuff with me when he was younger, and he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready to sleep, that far away from us yet when he was younger. But by the time he was 9 or 8, I can't remember, it was either 8 or 9 when we made this change. He was old enough. And even though he was like, I don't know if I want to do it, I'm nervous, it's too far away from you, all of those things, I had to trust my gut and say, this is a growth edge moment. It's not a deep end of the pool moment. I feel confident and aligned that I know you can handle this. And so I am going to create this container and I am going to hold the boundaries of that container. And I also know that you're not going to like it and you're not going to, thank me for that. So that's a tricky thing about the growth edge. The other thing to know about the growth edge is that we overshoot it all the time. And that's not a problem as long as we're paying attention. So when I moved Skye downstairs, I was thinking in my mind, like, I'm very confident that this is a growth edge thing for him. It's appropriate for him. He can handle it, all of that stuff. So I am going to hold this container and I am going to hold the boundary. So even if he tries to come upstairs, I'm going to say, you know what, babe, this isn't where you sleep anymore, all that stuff. But I wasn't doing that blindly. I was also observing my son. I was watching to see, like, okay, how's this transition going? Is there a time, maybe like a week or two after we've made this transition, where he is still like absolutely hysterical about sleeping in that room? That's something to take into consideration. Now, in that example, I made a good estimation. It was his growth edge, and he adjusted practically, in 2 or 3 days to sleeping downstairs, and it was great. And he's still in that room, and it's whatever. But there have definitely been times in my life where I have made a decision and then realized afterwards, like, that this is too extreme. It's not working. And Skye has the benefit of being the youngest child, which means I already had like 10 years of parenting under my belt before he was born. I can tell you that I made that mistake probably at least twice as much, maybe 10 times as much with my older children than I did with him. And I didn't have the ability to attune to my kids the way that I do now. So I didn't recognize that it was too far and it was too extreme. And I would double down on something, and it would have to get really, really clearly like beat me over the head with the obviousness of the fact that this situation wasn't working before I would finally get the memo. So this is kind of why you hear me say all of the time, the best thing we can do for our children is to work on our own consciousness, our own healing, our own awareness. Because the thing that my kids need from me in order to parent them well is not to be like some magical guru with a crystal ball that knows exactly where their growth edge is. But if I am in a high state of consciousness, I can make that mistake. I can accidentally put them in a situation that's beyond their growth edge and realize it and course correct, which I could not do when I was a younger parent because I was so stuck in my own ego. The only thing that has changed, which is why Skye and I had a really tough time coming up with a time when I've made this mistake with him. And and that's true. Like we probably spent 20 minutes before I pushed record today coming up with scenarios and then being like, well, no, okay, but how about this? No, not really. And there was an example he came up with where he's like, well, how about this? And I was like, yeah, but then I did listen to you. And he's like, oh yeah, you're right. And then I was like, if I had continued to push you on it, if I had said, no, you're going anyway, or whatever to this, it was a summer camp, was his example. That would have been a really good example of me pushing him beyond his growth edge, but I didn't, so there's the only difference between Skye's childhood and my oldest son Elijah's childhood is my evolution as a human being. And the reason why Skye and I had such a tricky time coming up with examples of me completely overshooting his growth edge and being this oblivious doubling down parent with him. And the reason why, if Elijah were here today, my 20-year-old, he would be able to come up with probably like a dozen examples right off the top of his head. The only thing that changed was my level of consciousness. And this concept has been really, I was about to say plaguing me recently with several people in my life, not clients, but people that I'm very close with who are struggling with their own, family issues and stuff like that. And I care for them deeply and I love them, but I'm not their coach. And it's just so hard to sit on the sidelines and watch people really grapple with and not be ready to engage with this idea that it's however much work we put into our children, however much energy, how much time, how much money we sink into trying to change or fix or help or heal our children. None of that works unless we are putting at least twice, if not 10 times, as much energy, time, money, investment and effort into ourselves. And without that work on raising our own consciousness and raising our own awareness and raising our own wellness, all of that time and energy and money that we're sinking into our children, it's completely wasted. We might as well just pull it all into a pile and light it on fire for the amount of impact it's going to have on our children. None of that stuff actually helps them if we're not doing our work, and we're doing twice as much work on ourselves as we are on everybody else. If that's not happening, it's all for naught. And when I say that this idea has been plaguing me, it's because it feels like such a hard concept to convey to somebody when they are in the thick of it, when they are in the moment with their kid and their kid is really struggling or really, off the rails or really dysregulated or really, failing even in school, for example, or in friendships or in executive functioning or all of those things. In the heat of the moment, it is so hard to convey to that struggling parent, yes, you're looking at a dumpster fire, but the only way for you to put that dumpster fire out is to completely take your eyes off of it, turn your back to it even, and go and look on the other side of the room, which is within yourself. And somewhere in there, if you are patient and you continue to unpack the stuff that's on the other side of the room, completely the opposite end of the room from that dumpster fire, that is the only way that you're ever going to find the fire extinguisher. It is very, very, very hard for parents to take their eyes off the dumpster fire and turn them inwardly onto themselves. And that is the thing that plagues me almost all the time as a coach, is there must be a way for me to express that really, hits home for these parents, so that they really finally do decide to take that leap of faith. Because it is a leap of faith to say, that I'm going to just look at myself and I'm going to take my eyes off my child, even though my child is going crazy. In order for me to truly see my child and attune to my child and respond to my child, I first need to get all of the blinders off of myself that are keeping me from doing that right now. I can explain the logic, which I just have, and I have done many, many times, and I will continue to do, and probably until the day I die. You can explain it, but it just doesn't feel right in the moment to the parent. And that is just something that I feel like is almost like an existential wrestling that I will probably also be doing until the day I die. But in order for us to truly understand and attune to our children and make sure that we're helping them stay in their growth edge, not going and dumping them off into the deep end of the pool over and over again, we need to be able to see them clearly and see the picture, the big picture clearly, and not be putting our own ideas about, well, other 5-year-olds know how to swim, or my friend told me my kid should know how to swim, or I feel kind of embarrassed when we go to a pool party and my kid is the only one wearing, floaties or whatever. Like, all of these things were my blinders. And until I raised my consciousness enough to remove them, I continued. I doubled down with Skye. I re-enlisted him in swim lessons for over a year. And he never learned how to swim, and he never liked them better. It never got easier. It never got better. And it never made a difference in his swimming ability. But I had my blinders on about, like, this is what you're supposed to do, so I'm going to do it. And the only thing that saved poor Skye from me, continuing to throw him into the deep end of the pool with complete oblivion to who he was and what he needed, was my own consciousness. So I hope that inspires you. Think about your kid's growth edge. And if there's something that you have just been like beating your head against the wall with your kid around trying to get them to learn it or level up or whatever, and they really aren't getting the memo, it is possible that you are expecting something from them that they're not ready for yet, or that is beyond their, capacity, or they need to learn it a different way. Like Skye had a great suggestion. What if I could have gone into that tiny little kids class instead of the one that was like too intense for me? These conversations, this openness is available to you. There is a way for you to solve these problems that you feel like you're beating your head against the wall with your kid on. And it starts with you and your consciousness, your wellness, your healing. And that's what my job is to tell you, oh, here's a way to have a conversation with your kid. And also let's raise your consciousness so that you actually can be present for that conversation. So if that's intriguing to you, if this is speaking to you, take advantage of that free discovery call you hear me talk about every week. Come and meet me. Tell me all the things you're beating your head against the wall with, the places where you feel frustrated and your kid isn't leveling up, and we'll look at it. Maybe it's because you're not helping them stay in their growth edge, or maybe it's, something else, or maybe there's a different approach you could take. That's all my job to help you figure out. And I will do that with you on a discovery call for free. So you're crazy not to take advantage of it. The link is in the show notes, and I can't wait to talk to you again next week. Bye, everybody.
The episode is over, but there's more waiting for you. You can grab my free workbook, Getting Kids to Listen the First Time, that walks you through the fundamental principles I teach all of my clients and applies them to this very universal parenting challenge. So if you're sick of repeating yourself all day long or just want to learn more about my style, you'll definitely want to go to bit.ly/kidswholisten. And if you're ready to work with me, let's meet. Set up a free call at bit.ly/Kaplan call, and let's create an action plan that gets you exactly where you want to go. And of course, links to all this goodness are in the show notes. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.